Welcome to the channel Miracles of History. It is a great joy to have you here. Before we begin, I kindly ask you to support this work by giving your like, subscribing to the channel, and sharing this video so that more people can also dive into the mysteries of history, archaeology, and the Bible. The tomb of Jacob the convert, mystery and curse. Today we are going to embark on a fascinating journey into a mystery filled with enigmas, archaeological discoveries, spiritual reflections, and deep biblical insights. The theme of our video is the tomb of Jacob the convert, a burial site discovered in Israel, nearly 2,000 years old, that bears a chilling inscription, a curse against anyone who dared to disturb or open the grave. But what exactly was found there? What message does this tomb carry across centuries? And, more importantly, what can the Bible and Jewish tradition teach us about this case? About life, death, and even resurrection. Get ready, because today's story goes far beyond archaeology. It invites us to reflect on the profound relationship between body and soul, on the sacred respect due to the dead, and on the eternal hope of life after death. The mysterious discovery in Israel. Archaeologists uncovered an ancient necropolis, a burial ground dating back nearly 1,800 years. Around 300 tombstones were identified, each telling fragments of forgotten lives. But one particular stone stood out in a disturbing and unusual way. A funerary slab, marked in red letters, a symbolic color often linked to blood and sacrifice. The inscription read, "I am Jacob, the convert, and I swear to curse anyone who dares to open my grave." Beneath this line appeared the notation of 60 years, written in a style different from the rest of the inscription, as if it had been added later. This oddity raised even more questions. Was it a warning about time, a hidden message, or just a minor, irrelevant addition? Regardless, this tombstone stood apart from all the others. It was the only one that presented a clear identity, a direct message, and a threatening tone. While most of the other stones lay silent, anonymous, and forgotten, Jacob's voice still spoke, echoing through time, warning those who would dare approach. What did archaeologists do? When people hear about a cursed tomb, they might imagine that archaeologists avoided opening it out of fear. Surprisingly, the truth is very different. The tomb was never opened, but not because of superstition. Instead, there were no intact graves left to open. The burial chambers had already been desecrated many centuries earlier. Ancient tomb raiders had looted these sites, stealing funeral treasures, removing bodies and bones, and finally discarding the tombstones in a cavern. Thus, when modern archaeologists arrived, they found only fragments, stones without graves, echoes of what once had been. Yet, the presence of such a chilling and threatening inscription remains profoundly unsettling to this day. The curse of Jacob the convert. Why would Jacob, identified as the convert, leave behind such a curse? To understand this, we must look at the biblical and Jewish view of burial and the dignity of the dead. From the book of Genesis itself, when God told Adam, "From dust you came, and to dust you shall return," burial became established as a sacred act of returning life to the Creator. In Deuteronomy, even a criminal sentenced to death was to be buried after punishment. In other words, if even a sinner's body deserved respect, how much more the remains of the righteous or ordinary men and women? For this reason, disturbing graves without a just cause has always been seen as desecration, an act that insults not only the body, but also the soul that once inhabited it. The tradition of burial. Throughout the Bible, we see extraordinary care given to the dead. A classic example is Abraham and Sarah. When Sarah died, Abraham did not simply bury her anywhere. He insisted on buying, for a high price of 400 pieces of silver, the cave of Machpelah in Hebron. This cave later became the famous tomb of the patriarchs, the resting place of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and their wives. This story reveals how burial was never seen as a mere formality. It was an act of faith, respect, and devotion to God. To bury the dead properly meant to honor both the body and the eternal soul. Why disturbing graves was so serious? There are two principal reasons why tampering with graves was considered such a grave sin. Disrespect for the body. Even in death, the body must be treated with dignity. To expose it was seen as dishonorable. Connection between body and soul. In Jewish tradition, the soul maintains a link with the body even after death. The body was the home of the soul, and disturbing it was seen as disturbing the soul itself. That is why Jacob, the convert, left such a fierce warning. "Cursed be the one who opens my tomb." Body and soul, a sacred union. one of the most beautiful allegories in Jewish tradition, compares the body to a blind man and the soul to a paralyzed man. The body, like the blind, has strength but no direction. The soul, like the paralyzed, has vision but no movement. Together, when the paralyzed rides on the blind man's shoulders, they form a perfect unity. So too with human beings. Body and soul are inseparably bound in fulfilling God's will. This explains why, even after death, the body must remain undisturbed, awaiting the day of resurrection. Resurrection of the dead. This theme of resurrection is central in the Bible. In Isaiah, it is written that one day the dead shall rise from their graves. On that day, soul and body will reunite in purity and perfection. Burial, therefore, is more than a tradition. It is an act of faith, returning the body to the earth to await renewal by the Creator. This is also why cremation is not part of biblical tradition. The body must go back to the ground, completing its cycle, until the resurrection. Exceptions, when moving the dead was allowed. Still, Scripture shows us exceptions. Jacob himself died in Egypt, but asked to be buried in Israel. Joseph made the same request. Why? Because Israel was considered the land of life, the place where resurrection would first unfold in fullness. In such cases, when it involved honoring faith or reuniting a family's burial, moving remains was permitted. The mysterious inscription revisited. Thus we return to Jacob, the convert, and his stone of blood-red letters. He knew the seriousness of disturbing a grave, and so he engraved his warning for all generations to see. I curse whoever opens my tomb. Perhaps he feared desecration. Perhaps he wanted to ensure his rest. Or maybe he wished to remind the living of the sacredness of the afterlife. Either way, his voice still echoes today, making his tombstone unlike any other. Final reflection. This story is not merely about archaeology or ancient curses. It is a powerful reminder of respect, of faith, and of the eternal dialogue between body and soul. Jacob's tomb remains a mystery, yet it also stands as testimony that for the ancients, death was never the end. It was a passage towards something far greater. If this journey into the mystery of Jacob the convert's tomb inspired you, do not forget, give your like, share this video with friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming stories that unite history, archaeology, and the Bible. Thank you so much for watching until the end. May this knowledge enrich your understanding of Scripture, deepen your respect for life and death, and awaken within you the hope of resurrection. See you in our next video here on Miracles of History.